Hi, I'm Cody Akmody.
I'm James Jordan.
The piece we're going to look at today is The Last Judgment by Michelangelo. The Last Judgment is a fresco by Michelangelo, completed between the years of 1536 and 1541. It is located on the altar wall of the Sistine Chapel in Vatican City, the same location of his famous work on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, completed many years earlier. It is a huge painting, measuring 539.3 by 472.4 inches, and took 4 years to complete.
The Last Judgment was originally commissioned by Pope Clement VII and was intended to depict the scene of Jesus' resurrection. However, after Pope Clement's death, his successor, Pope Paul III, found the scene of the Last Judgment of humanity would be a more appropriate scene for the altar wall. The painting shows Christ's second coming and the final judgment of humanity.
It seems there is a lot going on in this painting.
Yes, there are many figures depicted here. All of the figures were originally depicted as nude. Normally, the clothing of a figure in a painting was used to indicate their social status. However, Michelangelo depicts all his figures as nude to show that social status is irrelevant during the Last Judgment. Eventually, the naked figures, especially the naked depiction of the Virgin Mary, came to be considered sacrilegious. Much of the genitalia depicted in the Last Judgment was covered with painted drapery. However, about half of the censorship was removed during the restoration of the work that took place between 1980 and 1994.
Let's take a closer look on this painting. You can see in the upper left, these are symbols for the Passion of angels carrying the cross and thorns, and on the right side are angels struggling with a column from the villa of Pontius Pilate. Looking next at the upper middle portion of the painting is Christ in heaven. Michelangelo does an excellent job at depicting Christ's immense power and grandeur. Christ looks as if he is formed with muscles on top of muscle. He almost looks as if he is oversized, similar to the style during the Mannerist period. His hand looks to be raised to the damned as if he is smiting them to hell and pointing to his wounds to display the sacrifice that he made for them and that he too suffered. Mary on his right seems to be more focused on those that are saved and are rising to heaven. Because she is behind and under Jesus, it gives us a sense that Mary can no longer intercede for man, and that it is now all in the hands of Jesus. It's almost as if she does not want to see what her son is about to do, even though she knows it must be done. Instead, she chooses to focus on those saved.
To the left and right sides of Christ, also taking place in heaven, are important saints from the Old Testament. Many of the saints are holding the instruments that were used for torture and martyrdom. On the left, you can see St. Andrew holding his cross and looking away, and St. John the Baptist looking across at Christ. St. Lawrence is also shown holding the grill on which he was burned. Across from him is one of the most graphic images of martyrdom, and that is St. Bartholomew. He was flayed alive, and you can see him holding his own skin in his left hand and the knife that flayed him in his right. Some believe that the flayed skin is none other than Michelangelo himself. On the right, you can see St. Peter holding a pair of silver and gold keys, symbolizing the keys to heaven, which is actually a portrait of Pope Paul III. St. Blase is shown with the metal combs used to rake off his flesh before he was beheaded. St. Catherine is also shown with a broken wheel with spikes, and St. Sebastian appears with the heirs of his persecution.
It seems as if the presence of the saints around Christ is a way for Christ to be reminded of the brutality of man, to be sure there is no hesitation when condemning the damned. On the left, you can see the righteous are raised to heaven. People are seen from all kinds of angles, and this just goes to show how knowledgeable Michelangelo was in human anatomy. Above, you can see that they reach to heaven and they are rejoicing. In the middle of the painting, you can see angels blowing trumpets. This is to awaken the dead. The archangel Michael on the left reads from the Book of Souls to be saved. On the right, there is a list containing the damned destined to hell. I find it interesting how Michelangelo makes the larger book one for the damned. It's almost as if he is saying that there aren't that many people worthy of heaven. Raising the dead is shown on the bottom left of the painting. It's almost as if you're seeing the people morph from bone to muscle to flesh and to life.
Here we see the damned cast into the underworld. Angels can be seen pushing and punching the hopeless damned down towards Charon the boatman on their journey into hell. The demonic-looking creatures quicken the doomed to their final destination in the underworld. You can see fear portrayed in some of the people realizing their fate. Their victim, hunched over in self-embrace, his left hand supporting his chin and covering his left eye, exhibits what became for Michelangelo's followers the classic thinker's pose. But his clumsy posture, neither sitting nor standing, and his aghast staring but unseeing right eye set within a tortured and thunderstruck visage graphically communicate profound anguish. The boatman Charon is seen taking the people on a boat damned to hell. One of the three judges of hell, Minos, can be seen in the underworld and is portrayed as Biagio de Cesena. a papal master of ceremonies who criticized Michelangelo's work. He said that nude figures shouldn't be in a sacred place, and the painting would be more at home in a public tavern. Almost seeming as Michelangelo's retaliation, the portrayal of Biagio as Minos is not a flattering one. He's shown with features such as long pointed ears resembling a donkey's and a wrinkled face, and there's a snake wrapped around him biting onto his genitals. It seems like this is Michelangelo's way of getting his payback.
Many consider Michelangelo to be the greatest artist of his time. This can be seen through the artwork we are looking at right now. However, Michelangelo would have disagreed. Michelangelo thought he failed as an artist, especially an artist of painting. What Michelangelo did believe was that he saw sculpture work as the supreme form of art. Michelangelo proves his belief by excelling in sculpting marble, which we will see with our next artwork. The next work we will be looking at is Michelangelo's Moses. This is an example of Michelangelo's amazing sculpting skill.
This huge marble statue was commissioned in 1505 by Pope Julius II to be one of many marble figures decorating his tomb. It was not unusual at this time for important individuals to plan elaborate tombs for themselves. Michelangelo originally planned to decorate the tomb with over 40 marble sculptures. Even though the final design wasn't quite as elaborate as Michelangelo originally planned, the final design of the tomb is still very impressive. The largest and most famous figure depicted here is that of Moses. Originally meant to be elevated, the final design had Moses placed at the bottom center.
The figure depicted is Moses, the greatest figure of the Old Testament, deliverer of the children of Israel out of Egypt to the Promised Land. Moses is shown looking to his left and holding the tablets of the Ten Commandments in his right arm. When looking at the face of Moses, which almost resembles a Greek god such as Zeus, it is easy to imagine his frustration as he must have been viewing his followers worshipping the golden calf after he had left them, only for a short time.
Yes, he looks very tense. Moses desired to avenge his god, but desisted from doing so. The look on his face seems frustrated yet contemplative, as if he is thinking about what he should do next, or perhaps he is trying to contain his anger and frustration. We also see the muscles of his arms tensed, which gives the figure of Moses a sense of energy, even though he is seated.
Speaking of the seated position, take a look at Moses' feet and legs. Although he is seated, we can see by looking at Moses' feet and legs that he looks as if he is preparing to stand, just like with his earlier masterpiece, David. Michelangelo displays his brilliancy in capturing figures as they are preparing for action. It appears as if there is so much tension inside of this figure, and we are seeing Moses right before all that tension is released. Now, one thing that sticks out to me is the top of Moses' head. Are those horns?
They are. In the Vulgate translation, the most widespread translation of the Bible used at that time, Moses is described as being cornuta, or horned, after speaking with the Lord. The original Hebrew word used is koran, which often describes horns. As a result, Michelangelo depicted Moses with two horns protruding from his head. More recent translations describe Moses as having a shining face, or emitting light rather than having horns.
Michelangelo, a sculptor, painter, and architect. His work demonstrated a blend of psychological insight, physical realism, and intensity never seen before. His contemporaries recognized his extraordinary talent, and Michelangelo received a commissions from some of the most wealthy and powerful men of his day, including popes and others affiliated with the Catholic Church. His resulting work, most notably his Pieta and David sculptures and Sistine Chapel ceiling paintings, has been carefully tended and preserved, ensuring that future generations will be able to view and appreciate Michelangelo's genius.